Hello and welcome back to my Dandelion Diaries. We are continuing on with day 2 of Inkmas, and this is going to be all about the Diamine Inkvent calendar day number 2. If you missed day number 1, I will have that linked in the description along with the playlist, and I'm just going to go ahead and get started with this because I am very excited to see what our day number 2 is, because day number 1 wasn't really overwhelming for me. So let's see here. Ooh. So it looks like day number 2 is called Wilted Rose, and it is a standard ink. All right. For day number 2's Wilted Rose, I'm a little underwhelmed with this one as well. I think it's so interesting that this is the second year in a row where they had, I think, day number 2 as a rosy color. I really think this is a good one I'm going to compare to last year's purple Inkvent Cashmere Rose. I'm kind of excited to see how those two kind of play together, because Cashmere Rose I really loved and actually ended up buying a full bottle of. But this Wilted Rose is a bit more brown. I definitely consider this in the brown pink family. It has lovely shading from the look of it, and the fact that it is a standard ink is really nice because you could spruce this up yourself if you wanted to add shimmer or just enjoy it as it is. I do think this one is a little bit dry, just like the 𝗦𝘃𝗃𝗵𝘁, but we shall see once I get to the writing sample portion if I really feel that way. Just because doing it with this dip nib, it's not really flowing as nicely as I would like it to. But overall, it is a nice color. I definitely like this one better than the 𝗦𝘃𝗃𝗵𝘁, but I'm really curious to see what this compares to with some of the other kind of rosy colors that I have. And on that note, here is the pink swatches that I have. This is my Kokuyo Campus swatch book. I did a whole video on this and I talked about that in the last video, yesterday's video. But this is all of my pink swatches. So we're just going to kind of compare here. It's close to Birmingham Pen Company's Terracotta, but the Wilted Rose is definitely a lot more brown. I would say Terracotta is a bit more pink. For Wearingeul by 𝗏𝗏, it's very close again, but I think the 𝗏𝗏 ink is a bit lighter. Wilted Rose definitely has a bit more of a brownness to it, but I feel like the shading is kind of close. Nothing really on this page is sparking me. Okay, so it's kind of close to Brunch Date by Colorverse, but I would say Brunch Date is a bit more orange toned and Wilted Rose is a bit still more brown. Here is last year's Cashmere Rose, which is definitely much more pink, and Wilted Rose is much more brown. Surprisingly, this is pretty close to 𝗏𝗏𝐺𝐺's Opera Rose, but Opera Rose still has a bit more of that orange undertone. And next to 𝗏𝗏𝐻𝗏𝗏𝗏, which is probably like the trio that I find the closest, it's still a bit more brown than that one as well, but I think it's closer to Aphrodite than it is to Cashmere Rose. Yeah, I would have to say for this one, the closest ones are probably the 𝗏𝗏𝐻𝗏𝗏𝗏, if I can get my pages to turn. My hands are so dry, you guys. Yeah, I would have to say probably 𝗏𝗏𝐻𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, 𝗏𝗏𝐺𝐺 Opera Rose, and Colorverse Brunch Date, I think are the closest, but none of them really are the same shade. This is definitely a shade all on its own. It's a bit more brown than pink, but it's still really, really nice. And here is the writing sample of Wilted Rose. The top part here is still a little bit wet. I used a Speedball B1 Nib for the top part, and the bottom I just continued writing with my Sailor Hocoro dip pen. I would say this is a very dry ink. I think I was right initially when I swatched it. It felt really dry to write with a dip nib, but it is a very nice soft color. I think it's legible enough for me personally to read, but I do think it is a bit on the lighter side, especially if you like to write with fine or extra fine nibs. I think this would still look really light in those nibs for sure. But overall, the ink behaved really well. I don't have any issues with it other than it just is a little bit dry, but you could add a little bit of white lightning, put it in a really wet flowing pen, and maybe have a great success with it. But yeah, that is all for today, day 2, Wilted Rose. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Be blessed, and I will see you guys tomorrow for day number 3.